In recent years, there has been a significant shift in the global economic landscape as countries such as Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia have started moving away from the US dollar as the world's primary reserve currency. As these countries seek to reduce their dependence on the dollar, they are exploring new avenues for economic cooperation and developing alternative financial systems. In this video, we will explore how Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia are shifting away from the dollar and what this means for the future of the global financial system. So, fasten your seatbelts and get ready for an in-depth look at this critical issue. Which continent, other than Europe, has not seen the US bullying of other nations, from the Middle East to Southeast Asia, from Latin America to Europe? Which one of these actions, from invading sovereign nations to provoking color revolutions, from misusing unilateral sanctions to launching technology containment, is not a bullying tactic used by Washington? Most people find it absurd that the US is criticizing big country bullying, which ironically gives the impression that Blinken is disparaging his nation. Since the founding of the US, bullying has been deeply embedded in the culture of the nation. History has shown that the US bullies its friends and partners who appear to be disobedient, as well as its rivals and opponents. It turns out that the US does not believe in any other country, but only in its strength. After World War I, the United States virtually overnight surpassed other financial powers. Just entering the conflict in 1917, the nation beat out its European rivals in strength. As a result, the dollar started to replace the pound sterling as the world's reserve currency, and the United States also started to receive a sizable amount of gold imports during the war. Once 44 nations signed the Bretton Woods Agreement, which established a global system of currency exchange tied to the US dollar, which was in turn tied to the price of gold, the dollar soon came to play a bigger role in world affairs. European and Japanese exports started to compete more favorably with American exports by the late 1960s. It was challenging to back dollars with gold since there was a plentiful supply of dollars throughout the world. In 1971, President Nixon ended the direct exchange of US money for gold. As a result, both the gold standard and the printing restriction on money were abolished. The US dollar has steadily lost buying value since then, despite continuing to be the world's reserve currency. Several countries are experimenting with alternatives to the dollar to lessen the country's control over the world financial system due to concerns about American domination and the country's capacity to weaponize it. As a result of the economic sanctions put in place by the United States and other Western countries against Russia as a result of its invasion of Ukraine, Moscow and the Chinese government have been working together to reduce their reliance on the dollar and to establish financial system cooperation. The trade between the ruble and yuan has multiplied 80-fold since the invasion in 2022. Russian news outlet Vedmosti claims that Russia and Iran are also collaborating to introduce a cryptocurrency backed by gold. As nations work to diversify their reserves away from the dollar, central banks have also been purchasing gold at the quickest rate since 1967, particularly those of China and Russia. China has experienced rapid economic growth over the past few decades and has become the world's second-largest economy. However, it is important to note that the United States still has a larger GDP than China, although the gap between the two countries has been narrowing in recent years. It is also worth mentioning that while GDP is an important metric, it is not the only measure of a country's overall economic strength. Other factors, such as income inequality, poverty rates, and access to necessities such as healthcare and education, also play a significant role in a country's economic well-being. Brazil and Mexico are both members of the BRICS group of emerging economies, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries have been working to increase their use of their currencies in international trade, and they have taken steps to create their development bank to compete with institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. However, the US dollar is still widely used in trade and investment in these countries, and it remains an important reserve currency for many central banks around the world. The two biggest economies in South America, Brazil and Argentina, have recently debated the idea of creating a single currency. Many former Southeast Asian leaders discussed ongoing de-dollarization initiatives at a meeting in Singapore in January. According to Reuters, the UAE and India are in negotiations to switch from trading non-oil commodities in dollars to doing so in rupees. Saudi Arabia said that the oil-rich country is open to trade in currencies other than the US dollar for the first time in 48 years. The United States does have the largest military in the world and has significant military advantages over most other countries. According to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, as of 2020, the US dollar accounted for approximately 60% of global foreign exchange reserves and about 40% of the world's debt securities. The top 10 companies in the US, like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Meta, etc., play a crucial role in the economy and society of the country. These companies are leaders in their respective industries and have a significant impact on employment, innovation, and technology. However, corporations indeed have a significant influence on the US government due to lobbying and campaign contributions. The Citizens United Supreme Court ruling also made it easier for corporations to spend money on political campaigns. Saudi Arabia is an absolute monarchy, meaning that the king has complete control over the government and the country. The current king of Saudi Arabia is King Salman, who ascended to the throne in 2015 after the death of his half-brother, King Abdullah. The king has the power to issue laws, appoint ministers and judges, and make all major decisions related to the country's foreign and domestic policies. China is making progress in using the yuan, also known as the renminbi, to purchase oil. This means that China is starting to move away from using the US dollar as the primary currency for buying oil, which has been the norm for many years. The reason for this shift is that China wants to reduce its dependence on the US dollar, which is the world's dominant reserve currency. By using the yuan to purchase oil, China can increase the use of its currency in global trade and finance, which in turn can enhance its economic and political influence. 44% of the world's debt is denominated in US dollars. This means that borrowers around the world have taken out loans or issued bonds in US dollars, which they will have to repay in US dollars. The reason for this is that the US dollar is the world's most widely used currency for international trade and financial transactions, and it is considered a safe haven currency by many investors. The BRICS countries are contemplating adopting a new reserve currency to better suit their economic interests, according to senior Russian diplomat and BRICS pointsperson Pavel Knyazov. According to ET, it would be based on a basket of the currencies of the group of 5 countries. At a meeting at the Valdai Club in Moscow last week, Knyazov, the Russian government Sherpa on BRICS, stated that the potential and prospects of establishing up a shared single currency based on a basket of currencies of the BRICS countries are being explored. Vladimir Putin and Valdai have a tight relationship. Russian President Vladimir Putin declared that Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa want to launch a new global reserve currency during the 14th BRICS conference in June. He had then said, "We are willing to openly cooperate with any fair partners." According to those acquainted with the development, BRICS intends to construct a shared financial infrastructure that would enable the creation of a reserve currency to lessen reliance on the dollar and euro. BRICS has been strengthening economic relations among the member states, and trade volume has been gradually increasing despite obstacles set on by the epidemic and the situation in Ukraine. The European Union is implementing a carbon border adjustment mechanism, a tool that has been criticized by some as a quick path to fresh trade battles between the group and its trading partners, and hailed by others as a much-needed spur for climate action. The system, which requires imports to pay if their product has a bigger carbon footprint than its European counterparts, raises concerns among many companies and non-EU governments because the EU is targeting a higher climate neutrality objective and a green revamp of its whole economy. In conclusion, the moves by Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia to shift away from the dollar reflect a growing trend among countries seeking to reduce their exposure to US sanctions and geopolitical risks. While the impact of this shift on the global economy is still unclear, it is clear that the dollar's position as the world's reserve currency is no longer unchallenged. We hope you found this video informative and thought-provoking. Thank you for watching.